Hey guys, in this video I will explain the primordial one, because though Genshin seems cryptic and obscure, Genshin mirrors Gnosticism. However, it doesn't tell you the complete story, but I, however, will. Anyway, in Before Sun and Moon, and in my own words to show the relevant bits to this video's topic as well as to speed things along, an androgynous being was birthed from an egg. This being thought themselves the primordial one, as they had found themselves alone. Not long after their birth, they used the very egg they were birthed in to separate the heavens from the earth. They wanted to make the world anew and rid it of the dragons who had lived and ruled on it. So they created 4 shades of themselves to combat these wicked creatures. After 40 years, the primordial one and their shades were finally triumphant in vanquishing the dragons. They then started to reshape the world for mankind's sake, their creation that they had cherished most, whom soon would appear on the earth. So let's compare Gnosticism here for a moment. So yes, an androgynous being was birthed from an egg, whom did find themselves alone and did presume themselves to be the primordial one. However, in Genshin, the people writing these passages don't know the full story. So in Gnosticism, the primordial one was birthed from an egg, like I said, yes, but this egg was created by its creator, which is Sophia, and this wasn't intentional. This was a mistake. When the primordial one was born, however, he did find himself alone. However, though this being thinks themselves the primordial one and calls themselves such, in truth they are the demiurge. And he clearly isn't the first, not just because Sophia came before him or because others come before her. Not only that, but that even in Before Sun and Moon, he had to separate the earth from the heavens with the egg, which implies that there was a heaven and an earth already that needed to be separated. In Gnosticism, the heavens is pleroma, the light realm, which is also a thing in Genshin. The earth shouldn't be there, however, in Gnosticism. However, the material for its creation should be. All of the elements and everything the world is made of and everything on it, its primordial building blocks had already been created and left there by Sophia before the egg was even manifested. In Genshin, we know if there's a small accumulation of elemental energy, something like a crystal fly would be manifested. With a little bit more concentrated energy, you might get something like a slime. And if you have a large amount of concentrated energy, you would get something like a hypostasis. So what would happen if you have all of the elemental energy of whatever type, that is all of that specific type's energy that's spread out and consistent throughout the whole world, and you take all of that and just cram it into one single point? What would happen? Because that is what happened at the beginning of Teyvat. That's what happened in the beginning by what Gnosticism is saying. Each elemental point, all their raw energy was in one location. But by Genshin standards, what the heck kind of creature would be born out of that large amount of power? How powerful would that being be? The sovereign dragons is what I presume would come out of there. I originally assumed that the dragons in Genshin were simply aeons, angels, as in Gnosticism they had existed before the demiurge, and to him, through his eyes, they would be seen as villains, as he despises them. Just like in Gnosticism, the demiurge misdirects you. But this is not only the same thing that the demiurge does in Genshin, but this is also what Genshin does to you, the player. By making these being dragons, it would lead you to associate them with the dark side, with evil, with wicked beasts that need to be slain, making the demiurge seem malevolent for combating them, when in truth they are literally the farthest thing from it. This is also why the archons have demon names, as does Paimon, and likely we will as well. Projection and demonization of the other side, our own pre-notions will do the rest. Getting back on topic, in Gnosticism the demiurge also does create 4 copies of himself. However, in Gnosticism they're called Abyss Kings, and they are the Dark Archons. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna see these Abyss Kings in Genshin one day, and they're probably even gonna be called Abyss Kings. And if you go to any domain, you can see the symbolism there. There are 5 crowns there, 5 Abyss Kings. One of the Abyss Kings is the demiurge himself. There's supposed to be 7 Archons of the land and 5 Abyss Kings, 5 Dark Archons. This is exactly how it plays out in Gnosticism. By the way, if you watched my older videos, I did make one mistake in them, and it was that I assumed that Nahida said that the first ascender is the sustainer of heavenly principles. However, I was wrong. She said the heavenly principles was the first. Clearly, the heavenly principles is the demiurge, which now makes more sense as now it mirrors Gnosticism without alteration. Because if the demiurge isn't the first descender, then that leaves one extra descender that doesn't make sense. It's not accounted for in Gnosticism. But now that he is the first descender, then that means everything else lines up perfectly. I just assumed that Genshin was adding an extra step here and adding an extra descender, which I assumed was Alice, because she seems to be the person that makes the least amount of sense to the vat. She definitely seems like she comes from another dimension, and I still believe she does. I just don't believe she's an Aeon, and therefore she's not a descender. But I'll go deeper into all that in another video. We're getting off topic here. The reason I brought all that up is because now it tells us multiple things. The false primordial one is the demiurge. The demiurge is the first descender. The first descender is the heavenly principles. And since the sustainer of heavenly principles is a female, and the heavenly principles is the demiurge, we can infer that the sustainers of heavenly principles are the dark archons. They are the abyss kings. They're the shades, which also means since he made them in his image, then in Genshin, the demiurge is probably a female, or at least female presenting. Also, in case you didn't know, in Gnosticism, the demiurge is a snake with a lion's head, and he's also a shapeshifter. Anyway, to get back on topic, the Abyss Kings in Gnosticism also helped the demiurge reshape the material that Sophia had left behind to make the world. However, it wasn't for humans. No, it was for them. Even when they created humans, it wasn't for us. It was for their splendor. And in Gnosticism, just like in Genshin, the demiurge claimed that he had created the world for mankind out of the goodness of his heart. Right. Let me describe how the demiurge is said to be. He's said to be petty, insecure, immature, foolish, ignorant, narcissistic, jealous, childish, but also wrathful, and straight up evil. And the demiurge, in the end, ended up despising mankind, because they start to get smarter and smarter, and the demiurge couldn't allow anyone lesser than them to be seen in any way, shape, or form better than them. And to him, everyone is lesser than him. And he could not risk the humans surpassing him. But not only that, humans had a spark of light in them, allowing them the potential to ascend to the realm of light, and even becoming Aeons themselves. All of humanity has this potential, even the Fatui, as they haven't yet turned into Hilitrils. So everyone, or even anyone ascending, he can't have that. These are his property, these are his toys, so they belong in his toy box. Just knowing the truth, knowing there is more, knowing there is option, knowing you can leave this place and surpass him, became forbidden knowledge. And this world was now remade into a cage, a prison for humans. Even upon death, one will only be reborn again here. The only escape is to gain gnosis and ascend. But how can one if no one at all knows the truth? And to make it even worse, the demiurge made the archons with the very goal of keeping everyone so busy that their whole lives they will never even notice reality. Only the fixations of each archon, which is their egotistical desires. Anyway, since the demiurge is a mistake, he's imperfect, he's flawed, and because of his imperfections, he makes mistakes. Mistakes in his rules, mistakes in his own logic, mistakes in his creations. Which means the Abyss Kings are also imperfect and they make mistakes, as are the Archons and the humans and even the world itself. In Gnosticism, eras make mistakes and mistakes lead to evils, making our world a bad world, a dark world, an evil world. But there is hope. The only way out is for one to open their own eyes and gain vision, obtain gnosis simply by seeing the truth and being enlightened by it by choosing light over darkness. If Genshin is really mirroring Gnosticism without much if any alteration, what does this mean for the future in regards to the demiurge? If you guys are expecting some one-on-one fight with the demiurge in his throne room, no matter how epic that fight looks and how crazy the mechanics are, in comparison to Gnosticism, that would be cheap. One should be more concerned about him repeating the evil things he does throughout the stories. And very likely in Genshin's future, so the game could keep continuing, his corruption and influence spreading, new armies and cults rising in his name. Even when you snuff out one, another one would rise in time. Or even worse, the cataclysms that he bestows upon humanity in Gnosticism. And he likely did as well in Genshin. For instance, in Before Sun and Moon, and just so you know, these little passages in Sun and Moon, each of these passages are one little glimpse of a bigger story. This is not one story, this is multiple stories pieced together in Before Sun and Moon, and there are stories missing in between them. so you're not seeing the full picture. I probably have to go over sun and moon in multiple different videos just to explain all the missing data here. That's why I didn't explain it completely here. I couldn't, there's not enough time. But let me just explain this one part because it's relevant to what I'm saying. So in Before Sun and Moon, 400 years after he held the branches, the mountains and the rivers were made, and the seas and the oceans accepted those who rebelled and those who would not kneel. So what happened here is that Adam's offspring started to multiply and spread throughout the land. And the demiurge despited mankind, remember, so he wanted to just rid the world of them, of this nuisance, of this corruption, this plague upon his land, upon his world. So what he did was called a cataclysm. He flooded the entire world to get rid of Adam's offsprings, and took out a lot of his people as well doing this. Some of Adam's offsprings did survive by taking heed of the warning they were given, so they live on today. In the very next passage in Before Sun and Moon, it says, the year of the ark's opening, the primordial one had a sacred plan for humans. As long as they were happy, he too rejoiced. Knowing Gnosticism, this is creepy. This is creepy as hell. So his plan was so bad that I'm not allowed to tell you what he did on YouTube without my channel getting flagged. It's hinted at here in Genshin, but I hope it just stays obscure and they don't actually ever reveal and say what this is or put it again. It's horrible. It shouldn't be in Genshin is what I'm saying. But this is what happened in Gnosticism. Anyway, I'm just gonna kind of explain what it is without saying it. So what he did is, since the descendants of Adam did survive this flood, what he did was sent his dark archons so that Adam's offspring, descendants, in time will inevitably mix with them. To every last human is a descendant of these Nephilims, making them all his people. Clearly that hasn't happened yet and is a failure in his logic, as being a descendant of Nephilim doesn't brand you as evil or on the side of the demiurge, as even they have a spark of light within them and therefore the potential to gain vision and to ascend to the realm of light, even become an aeon themselves, but that's a video for another day. Anyway, like I said, the demiurge is a horrible being. This being does not deserve redemption. Everyone else, even the Fatui, perhaps they do, but this guy is as bad as they come. In my point of view, they do not deserve redemption. So his sacred plan for humans is to corrupt their bloodline. And the second part of that, as long as they are happy, he too rejoices. As long as you're happy serving him, he's cool with it. But if you reject him, if you don't bend the knee to him, he's gonna throw a tantrum. There is still so much more to tell in regards to the demiurge alone. But this is, I feel, the most important parts that paints the best picture of him. Anyway, if you want to see any of the other stories in Gnosticism and how Genshin mirrors it, as well as to understand any other things in Genshin that are very obscure, then I probably have a video for it, or I'm working on a video for it. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I hope to see you next time.